Hello everybody and welcome to a very special DreamSpace live celebrating Computer Science Education Week. My name is Michael. I'm one of the teachers and STEM educators on the Microsoft Ireland DreamSpace team. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, either live or if you're watching this back on demand. I'm also joined this morning by one of my colleagues, Niamh. Hello Niamh.
Hi Michael. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me here.
Are you excited for today's session?
I am. I think Computer Science Education Week is one of my favourite weeks because we are computer science educators. So
we have a whole week dedicated to ourselves. So folks, what we're going to be doing is first and foremost, we're going to be just jumping over and looking at what are we going to be learning today over the next. Okay, so the first thing we're going to be looking at today, folks, is we're going to be understanding what exactly is Computer Science Education Week. So we're going to understand a little bit of its history and the whole purpose behind a whole week dedicated to CSEd, which I'm really going to be looking forward to.
Same.
Next off, Niamh, we're going to
be taking a trip back in time. So we are going to be looking at the history of computer science, and we're going to be looking at some maybe famous people in computer science that made groundbreaking work when it comes to the field of computer science.
It's really cool. Yeah, we're going to be exploring people who made really significant contributions to the digital age we're living in right now, kind of building it to that point. But being inspired by those folks, we're going to be looking at some coding fundamentals as well. So we're going to have a good understanding of what exactly algorithms are, what data is, how data is kind of fueling our everyday lives right now, whether that is it being tracked on different websites and services that we use, or how it's actually being used to influence the decisions that technology make today as well. We're also going to have an introduction to artificial intelligence, or AI, and some of the concepts associated with it. Because AI right now, it's a real big popular buzzword. Everyone's using it, everyone's talking about it, so we're going to learn a little bit about it. And last but not least, Niamh, what are we going to be doing?
We are going to be working on our very own MakeCode microbit project, and this project, it's to do with the team, it's in relation to AI. So I'm very excited to work on this project, and we'll give you a little bit more information about it as we go throughout today's session.
Yes, exactly. So speaking of, let's get stuck right into it, folks. We're going to be exploring Computer Science Education Week. First and foremost, what exactly is it, Niamh? What is it?
Well, Computer Science Education Week happens every single year, Michael, and it's usually celebrated in December. And it's all about giving people the opportunity and equal access to, exploring computer science, exploring computer science fundamentals and what is involved in it in a fun and engaging way.
Excellent, really cool. I like that word equity. It's a really important one. Everyone has the same opportunities, and that computer science is for everybody, which is really important. What exactly even is computer science? Well, it's a subject and discipline that's really important. It's all about kind of looking at problem solving, analytical thinking skills, and it's really vital in today's job market. Now, I know a lot of you guys aren't thinking about the job market, but in the future, it's going to be really important for a range of different career fields. And it's all about coding, okay? And that's because coding is fundamental in a range of different technologies, in the smartphones that we use, even in robotics. Now, Niamh, I have a bit of a question for you. Maybe I am a younger student. I'm thinking, I don't want to pursue a career in computer science. I don't want to become a coder. I'm not even going to think about computer science. Is that a good way to think?
Never. Because even though you mightn't think that's for you, the skills you learn when you're taking part in computer science activity are skills you can use in other aspects of our lives.
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be really important. Problem solving, analytical thinking, computer science and technology have such a big part to play in our everyday lives. Having those skills and having that knowledge is going to be important for you to kind of navigate this digital world. So next off, we have something, Niamh, that a lot of people have heard about. We're actually going to be doing one of those today in today's session, an hour of code. It's a big term everyone's talking about. What is it?
I like to think of it as a little buzzword, but basically it is a global initiative, and it's all about encouraging people to do, as it says, an hour of code. So it's introducing people to maybe basic coding concepts, and it can be people of all ages as well, from a very young age also to a very older or much older age even, giving them the opportunity to experience computer science in a fun way.
Excellent, yeah, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. Yeah. 1 hour of code. Okay, excellent. And then last but not least, what makes up CSEdWeek? Well, it is what's involved. Each year we highlight different aspects of computer science and making it accessible, making it engaging for students just like you guys, with activities and coding tasks like ones we're going to be taking on today, and discussions on current trends. And I know we mentioned it at the top, but today's kind of hot topic is going to be artificial intelligence and AI. Exactly. So our hour of code is going to be inspired by that. So Niamh, are you ready now to take a step back in time and explore a timeline of computer science.
I'm always ready, Michael.
Excellent. So our first stop on the CS timeline is with a woman called Ada Lovelace. This was back in the early 19th century, and Ada was considered the first computer programmer, and she actually wrote the first algorithm intended to be processed by a machine. Niamh, do you want to tell us a little bit more about Ada Lovelace?
Yeah, so Ada Lovelace was actually an English mathematician, Michael, and basically what she is renowned or known for is her work with a person called Charles Babbage, and they worked together on this machine called an analytical engine, and it's basically from her contributions to this machine is why she's considered the world's first computer programmer.
Excellent. Okay, very cool. So she started the whole thing.
Yeah.
Next stop on our tour is, funnily enough, Alan Turing. All right. Mid 20th century, Alan Turing developed concepts that form the basis of modern computing. And Turing proposed the idea of a universal machine that could solve any problem given the right algorithm. A universal machine, Niamh. What do you think he meant by that?
So that definitely is an interesting one, and one you mightn't think of straight away, but I think what Alan Turing was trying to refer to there is what we consider the modern day computer. So when we think of a computer as a universal machine, if I was to give you an example of it, Michael, I would a good one would be a computer running as maybe a calculator program that makes it act like a calculator. Or another great example would be maybe a game program that makes it act like a game console.
Excellent. Okay, so basically the universal machine is a machine that can assume the identity of a range of other ones.
Yeah.
You know? Very cool. Okay. Next stop, we're going to hop on over to the next person of interest on our CS timeline, and that is Grace Hopper.
You do love an acronym.
So Grace Hopper was around in the mid 20th century. She developed the first compiler for a computer programming language and popularized the idea of machine-independent programming languages. So I know if you've joined us for a DreamSpace Live before, or if you've done any coding before, you would have heard the term programming language. It's basically the language we use to communicate with computers. But a couple of things in there, Niamh, that kind of jump out: compiler, machine-independent programming languages. Do you know anything more about Grace Hopper?
Yeah, so Grace Hopper was an American computer scientist and mathematician, and I actually have a fun fact about this, because we mention this word all the time when we're coding, but basically she is said to have coined the term bug, which we know what bug means. There's a mistake or error in our code because she found one when she was working on something.
Okay, awesome. Okay, really, really cool. Yeah. Imagine coming up with a term that lasts that long and is that cool. Okay, awesome. I also think if anyone's wondering, what does a compiler mean? Well, a compiler is essentially, it takes the input of the code that we give it, whether it's Python or JavaScript or C# or even our block-based coding, and then actually kind of translate that into the ones and zeros for a computer to understand as well. It's like a translator app, essentially. Okay. Next up is someone we know very dear to us here in Microsoft. It is Bill Gates. So Bill was around in the late 20th century. He's the co-founder of Microsoft, and he played a pivotal role in the personal computer, more commonly known as the PC. And it was the revolution with Microsoft software and making computer more accessible to the public, which is quite cool, and it kind of ties into the theme of what CSEdWeek Week is all about, making sure this is accessible for all.
Very cool. And fun fact about Bill Gates, Michael, is he actually started to go to college. He went to Harvard University, and he was actually studying pre-law, so it was nothing to do with computer science.
That's a really fun fact.
But he obviously had a passion for this and was doing other courses, and eventually dropped out of university because he wanted to go and found his own company.
That's really cool, and I kind of hopefully can maybe stick that for some people as well, to know that maybe you don't find your passion straight away.
Exactly.
It'll come to you though eventually. And then second to last up, we have someone called Tim Berners-Lee. So the inventor of the World Wide Web. That's what the www stands for at the beginning of all the URLs. Berners-Lee made the internet widely accessible and changed how we share and access information. Imagine being the person who came up with the internet.
I know, insane, absolutely insane. But also on that, he is also one of the primary creators of the coding language HTML, which, if for any of you that don't know, it's one of the coding languages that is used when you create a website.
Excellent. Okay, cool. So yeah, if you ever go down the route of web design, you're definitely going to come across HTML. It's one of those popular languages and so on. Excellent. And then last but not least, no one in particular, but we actually have modern day innovators. Okay, so there's lots of them on the go. We have figures like Satya Nadella, who's the current CEO of Microsoft, and many others as they kind of lead the digital transformation we are in. And they're shaping how we interact with technology and help us kind of navigate the digital age that we're currently living in. Because I think it's undeniable we're living in an age of technology. Even if you think about how much tech you probably would have even interacted with it up until this morning, and it's only 11:15. So what we want to do now, folks, is we've kind of looked into the past. It's now time to look into the future. We have a question for you. So what new inventions or changes do you think might happen in computer science in the next 10 years, and how could they make our daily life more exciting or even just different in general? And how we want you to approach this question is in a think, pair, share way. So think about your answer to it, pair up with the person beside you, and then either share it with us or share it out in front of your class as well. We're going to pause now and give you guys the opportunity to have that discussion. Okay, best of luck, folks. At the next step in computer science. Okay, so we've looked at the history of it. We even talked about the present a small bit, but now let's look to the future. And what's going to be the universal language of the future, I believe, is going to be code. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of you have heard of code before, but if you haven't, this is essentially a language that we use to communicate with computers, to tell it to do things for us, to accomplish tasks for us. We can do it as simple as creating like simple websites using things like HTML, like Neve was talking about earlier on, or even making really, really super complex artificial intelligence. Now, as we said from the top, even if you don't want to pursue a career in STEM or coding, or even take it up as a hobby, understanding the basics of coding is going to allow us to become creators in the digital world that we're living in, which is going to be really, really important. Now, there's something fueling all of this and all of this future of tech, Neve. And what is that?
And that is data, because data is absolutely everywhere. We leave behind a vast amount of data on every website that we visit. So when it comes to data, data acts as like the fuel for decision making and innovation and creation. So basically it can help us understand patterns and make predictions and even help us solve problems. So we need to think as well, because we are generating so much data, Michael, that we have to think about how we're going to manage this data, how we're going to use this data, and how we can actually analyze this data as well, because it's becoming more and more important in this everyday life.
I believe we say quite a lot in our Dream Space session, Neve, don't we, that like data is kind of like the new oil, right? Yeah. And what do you think we mean when we say that to students?
So years ago, the oil business was the business that was making like all the money. Yeah. However, nowadays, data is what everyone wants, and every company and organization wants your data, because that's how they're able to make decisions, create new products and services for people, because there's no point in making a product if people aren't going to buy it or use it. Okay, so they need to create stuff that people actually want.
And it's all down to data analytics that allow us to kind of make those decisions. And then what is that fuel going into? Well, more often than not, that is going into something called artificial intelligence, which is really, really shaping the future, shaping the modern day, but also going to be playing an even bigger part into the future. It's a fascinating field, Neve, where computers are designed to think and learn like humans. Okay, imagine a world where machines can diagnose diseases, drive cars, and even create art. And you don't even have to imagine too hard for that world, because we're currently living in that world. That's the potential of AI. It's a field that combines coding, data, and innovative thinking. And what's really exciting about that piece there, Neve, is that we always talk about how AI is just a tool. Yes, coding is the backbone of it and how it makes decisions. Data is how it actually learns, but it's up to us to actually effectively use it as a tool to accomplish what we want to do with that AI. So understanding AI basics help us to appreciate how it can be used responsibly to improve our lives. That's a really good one, Neve. Thinking about responsibility when it comes to AI. Do you think that's important?
Definitely, because we want it to be used for good and not for it to be used for bad.
Yes.
So it's having that balance of like, what is AI for good?
Exactly,
how we can use it.
I think we talk quite a lot about the pros and cons of artificial intelligence, and the only way to kind of really weigh in on that debate in any kind of meaningful way is to be able to understand exactly what it is. So let's look back now to modern day. Okay, artificial intelligence, AI, robots thinking for themselves, that is not science fiction. It is something that is currently happening right now. And myself and Eve are just going to list off some examples that you may not know are actually influenced or powered through AI. The first one is something called a virtual assistant. Some examples of these would be Siri, Alexa, Cortana, Hey Google, and so on. I wonder if there's anyone's Alexa's actually go off by saying that.
I actually have Alexa.
Oh,
I use it every morning to wake me up.
I actually do that as well, you know? So it's your own kind of like a little virtual assistant helping you out, answering questions for you and doing tasks for you as well. Like Alexa, put my alarm for 20 minutes now so I can have
Snooze,
a quick
please.
power nap. Next up, we then have recommendation systems. So what are they all about, Neve?
So they're like your platforms such as Netflix or any streaming services, and basically they can give you recommendations based on what you've watched previously or maybe what you've listened to previously. So for example, Netflix, if you like watching comedy movies, let's say for example, they will give you more recommendations of comedy movies.
Yes. It's no surprise that when you open up Netflix or any other streaming service, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime and so on, you open it up and the first few recommendations for you are typically to your taste, typically to what you actually like and what you're into. That's all just down to the data being collected on you, then fed into an AI that then it gives you those recommendations. Next up, Neve, something I think you love, and I actually love it as well. Online shopping. You know?
So AI analyzes basically your preferences and recommend products based on like what you might have clicked on. Maybe you clicked on a dress, maybe it'll recommend a similar dress in a different color. My online addiction, this does not help with it. Or shopping addiction even. So basically they're having a look at what you've previously looked at and they will give you recommendations based on this.
Next up then we have navigation apps. So AI powers modern day GPS systems. Back in the day when GPS systems were kind of first and foremost kind of coming out and you'd have things like TomToms and stuff like that which would just kind of like verbally call out instructions as if you were reading an actual map. Modern day navigation systems are so much more complex than that. They're actually pulling in information from other users, such as the amount of phones that are being picked up along one road, okay, or one motorway, or so on. Picking up all that information, and then they can actually say to other users, do you know what, you might want to avoid that road because we've basically detected so many mobiles there. Going to be heavy traffic, right? There's going to be a lot of cars on that road. Sometimes you can even reroute you mid-journey to kind of help you get the best recommendation of a route to get to your destination, which is quite cool, right? It's quite interesting.
It's really cool, yeah.
We then have social media, Neve.
Yeah, so when it comes to social media, AI has the potential to give you personalized feed on your social media apps. So for example, on TikTok, I currently, Michael, love looking at Dachshund dogs. I just think they're so cute.
Are they the sausage dogs?
They are, yeah. I just think they're so cute. So my feed is just full of videos of them, but I actually don't care because I love them so much. But because I keep watching the videos and I keep liking and interacting with them, it keeps giving me more videos of similar content.
Oh, very interesting. Then, moving on, we have smart home devices. So you actually may have some of these in your homes, thermostats and lights that adapt based on user behavior, whether that is knowing that you come home during a certain time or you leave the house during a certain time, turning the heating down or turning off the lights when that happens. A lot of the time you may even have lights that turn on in the morning time to wake you up and so on. Some people kind of go really next level with this and their whole house is purely automated using AI and controlled through one central hub. One day I'm pretty sure I want to build a smart home.
I actually have smart light bulbs.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, I use my Alexa to turn them on and off.
I don't think people actually realize, well, that's really good for sustainability. It means that you're actually kind of you're not using as much energy by turning off lights in a very smart fashion. We then have customer service chatbots, Neve.
Yeah, so a lot of websites in today's world have like customer service inquiries, but basically it's through a chatbot. So they don't hire people to be customer service representatives for them anymore. They have a chatbot to do it for them. Yeah. So basically can be very efficient because the chatbot comes up with questions. Are you talking about X, Y, or Z? And you click those options, and hopefully the whole idea behind it is it will help you out in a quicker fashion.
Yes. And next up then we have healthcare. I know some people were actually mentioning that in the Q&A earlier on, which is fantastic. AI can actually assist in diagnosis and treatment planning as well. What's really cool about that is that modern day AI can actually help diagnose an ailment or an illness prior to even a human doctor, right?
Which is incredible.
Which is really interesting, really cool. But I think what's cool about that is that it being used as a tool. So imagine medical professionals actually using AI to kind of help come up with their treatment plan, and detect those illnesses a lot earlier on. before it kind of goes later onset. And then last but not least, then we have cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity. So basically AI is able to pretty much help us detect and protect ourselves against cybersecurity attacks in real time, which is a really cool feature because in today's world, because we're all on the internet and we're all using internet or browser-based apps and so on, we are very vulnerable. So it's really cool that AI can help do this.
Yeah, what's interesting,
protect us.
I think that's really cool. I think what's really important about that one is that it's in real time. So that obviously if you're under your network or your infrastructure is under a cyber threat of some sort, the hackers, the attackers can change on the fly because you're human, you can kind of adapt and so on. But AI can actually counter that and come up with solutions and come up with barriers that are responsive just as quickly, which is really, really interesting, really, really cool. So what we're going to be looking at now, Niamh, is we're going to be exploring today's project because we're just about to go into our hour of code, okay? So today's project is called Micro Assist, the mini virtual assistant simulator.
I like the sound of this.
So your challenge is this, folks. We're going to dive into the world of AI by creating a simple virtual assistant using the Microbit simulator. Your task is to program it to respond to commands and inputs like popular digital helpers. And this one, folks, is going to be a really cool challenge. We're going to get really creative with this. We're all going to be kind of working on a similar task, but we might have different solutions. Myself and Niamh will do a demo of a virtual assistant that we're going to create using the Microbit simulator, but you guys can be really independent and create your very own one. We want you to be as creative as possible with this.
Yeah, it's a really cool activity that you can be as creative as possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what we want you guys to do, folks, is we actually want you to think about any virtual assistants you may have interacted with in the past, whether it's Siri or Cortana or Alexa and so on. What have you got those virtual assistants to do, and how could we replicate that in our Microbit simulator world? Now, before we get going with coding, because as we always say, it's great to code, but it's always better to kind of code with a purpose, we're going to be taking part in a little bit of a planning session. So what we want you guys to do, and we're going to give you a good bit of time to do this, so once you get a pen and paper, or with your partner as well, you can actually buddy up for this activity as well. And we want you to plan out what your virtual assistant will look like. So what is the name of your virtual assistant? So come up with a snappy name. You know, you want people to be using it. Remember as well, people are going to have to say that. It's like, hey, such and such, or micro assistant, so on. We want you to then focus on what's your primary function or task that your assistant will perform. So what is the main thing that your assistant will be able to do? Choose one or two Microbit inputs. So if you aren't aware, the Microbit has inputs such as buttons, temperature sensors, light level readers, a compass, and so much more. We'll be looking at those in just a second. And then what type of responses, whether that's text or symbols or LED patterns, will your assistant display? And last but not least, Niamh, what is it? We want them to get really creative and think of one unique or creative feature of your assistant. Okay, so this is where you get to be.
That's the coolest part because you get to be as creative as possible. I love being creative when it comes to coding.
Yes, exactly, right? So you can kind of think of something really, really original, okay? So keep in mind, folks, that we're going to be kind of emulating what the idea of a virtual assistant. The Microbit simulator won't allow us to have a full-on AI working in it, but we can get pretty far in regards to what we can actually have it output for us, depending on a range of different inputs. So what we want you guys to do now is to pause, go through all of those questions you see on your screen, and use those as a guide or as a template to plan your very own virtual assistant. Be sure to let us know how you go. Be sure to share with your teacher. Be sure to share with your other classmates as well.
Okay, folks, so thank you so much for your engagement there in the Q&A and giving loads of ideas on what we're going to do for our virtual assistant. So myself and Michael got planning straight away, and we came up with some pretty cool ideas, I think.
Yeah.
So first of all, this is kind of like a run-on joke with Microbit. We named it MichaelBit.
Naturally, the virtual assistant.
I don't know if Michael actually liked that, but I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. So our virtual assistant is called MichaelBit. Then we thought it would be a really good idea because both myself and Michael are woken up every morning by our Alexa. So we were like, what is some way we could integrate this to our Microbit? So we're going to use the light level sensor in the Microbit to wake us up.
We're gonna, yeah, exactly. We're gonna kind of keep in mind as if like it's tracking the sun outside. Do you know what I mean? Unfortunately, we get woken up by time and not a lovely sunrise. But this is gonna be our ideal, perfect scenario of a virtual assistant.
In an ideal world. Next, we're going to have a look at temperature because I always ask my Alexa every day what's temperature like outside, so I know what type of jacket to wear, or actually whether to bring an umbrella or not because I don't always carry an umbrella with me.
You never have an umbrella.
No. So that's another thing we are going to simulate with our micro assistant. Then as well, but myself and Michael love to listen to music, so we are going to maybe when we press a button on the microbit for the microbit to play some music for us.
Yes.
And then hopefully as well we have some time to include the last little bit, which is Michael loves to go for runs. So we're going to get our assistant or ask our assistant for some random exercises or warm-up exercises that we can do.
Warm-ups, exactly. Something I'm not a very big fan of.
Really important.
But they need to be done, you know, so hopefully a little bit of randomness of exercise and warm-ups, I should say, can kind of make it a bit more interesting for me. So we have a lot to cover. If we don't get everything covered on our plan, that's okay. We have plenty of time to take it up afterwards. And hopefully, guys, you have your virtual assistants planned as well. Niamh, I'm going to jump over to the MakeCode platform. I'd see there's actually a few posts coming into the Q&A there if you want to quickly call out some of the virtual assistants that other people are talking about. So
there's loads coming in here, but some people are saying they want their assistant to help them decide what to wear.
Excellent.
I would also love that too. Someone else said my assistant will measure temperature, moisture levels and light level in order to make decisions about appropriate clothing.
Ooh,
I love that people are on the same buzz with clothing.
Yeah.
Someone else here said about the music that they want their AI to help them pick what music genre to listen to depending on their mood.
Oh, that's a cool one. Very cool.
That is very cool.
Okay, great stuff, folks. So what we're looking at right now is MakeCode for Microbit. It's a free coding platform and editor for the Microbit, the microcontroller. Tiny little device, a whole computer on a single chip. It's really, really cool. This platform is completely free to use. All you got to do is go to makecode.microbit.org. We'll pop that in the Q&A as well, just in case you guys need it. Also, folks, there's no sign up or no sign into this platform. And if you fall in love with the Microbit today, which I hope you guys do, or which you maybe already have done, you can actually come back onto this website and take part in a range of different tutorials, live coding sessions. There's games on here as well, radio games, and so on. It's really cool. Those tutorials bring you step by step. But what we're going to be doing now, folks, is we're going to be creating a new project. Our project is going to be the name of our virtual assistant. In this case, it's the MichaelBit. So I'm going to type in MichaelBit.
I think it looks great.
That's going to be the next hardware that's launched. Okay, great stuff. So we have an editor. I've refreshed my Microbit platform, so it thinks it's the first time I've been here. Don't worry, I've been here a couple of times before. So it's given us a little brief tutorial. We may as well just take the tutorial. So let's take a quick tour of the editor. Over here on the left, Niamh, we have the simulator. You know, you want to tell us a little bit about simulator?
Yeah, so the simulator is where you go and test all your code out, and it's really cool because it has your 25 LED lights, has your A button, has your B button, has your touch logo, and has all the pins at the bottom. So we get to test out all our code on our simulator.
Next off, folks, we have our toolbox. So we're going to be using block-based coding today, like we typically do. What's great about block-based coding, all color coordinated, all fit together, kind of like digital Lego. And if you see me use a block and you're wondering, where did Michael get that block? Look for the color and you will find it in the corresponding category with that same color. Next up, folks, we have our workspace. This is where we're going to be doing all of our hard work. This is where we're going to be placing our blocks of code and actually creating our programs. Once you finish today, folks, you can actually create a shareable link that you can share with your teachers, your adults at home, or even share to other devices if you want to continue working on your code. So maybe you don't finish off your virtual assistant. You can actually click that little kind of share icon in the top right to do so. If you do have access to the Microbit hardware, some of you might not, you can actually download your virtual assistant to your Microbit hardware just down here in the bottom left by first of all pairing it and then downloading it. And congratulations, Niamh, we have some confetti. We're finished.
Woohoo!
So we have a lot to cover, Niamh.
Yeah.
So I think it's time to get going.
Yeah.
You know?
Let's get stuck into it. So I was thinking, Michael, the very first thing we could do is, you know, the way we call it out for our virtual assistants in real life, be like, Alexa, whatever. I want to do that maybe not every time I start the Microbit, that will show the name of our virtual assistant, maybe like every time I shake it.
A little bit of an intro.
Yeah,
okay,
kind of.
Cool.
So I was thinking on shake.
I love it, okay?
What do you think?
So I completely agree.
Okay.
What we have here is on, start, and forever, our two amazing C-shape event blocks that triggers the program that we place inside of them, whether it's on, start, or forever. They're brilliant. They're our default blocks. They're not working for us just yet.
Yeah.
So I'm going to actually delete them.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
So I'm going to left click
We
to
may
add them
use
over to the
them
center
later on,
and delete
though.
them. Yeah, we can pull those back out.
Okay, cool.
And they're actually blue. So what category are they going to be found in?
They're going to be found in basic.
Exactly. So what you were saying then, if we want to say on shake, we want it to basically introduce itself as a virtual assistant. So we can go into input. we can drag out on shake.
Yeah.
And we're going to place it just there. Next thing, our title and our name of our virtual assistant, we're going to display that as a text. Okay.
Brilliant.
So we're going to go into basic. We're going to scroll on down. We're going to find show string. We're going to place it just there. Strings, Neve, why does it just say show words? Why does it say show string?
So a string is a computer science term, and basically what it means is that it can have numbers, letters, and special characters or symbols in it. So it's actually an alphanumeric data type or data set. And so basically what it is, people use it basically for words or sentences. So yeah, that's why we say show string.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in Michael Bit just here.
This is so exciting. I just think it's so funny.
Just like that. Okay. And now I'm going to go over. We don't want you guys picking up your devices and shaking them, all right? You can shake your MakeCode hardware if you do have your code downloaded. But our simulator gives us a button to kind of simulate the movement of a shake, okay? So it's just up here. I'm going to press it. And unfortunately, MakeCode is not popping up. What's going on, Neve?
Because as Grace Hopper would say, you have a bug.
I have a bug in my code. And what is the bug? Can you spot it here for me?
So you mentioned that when it comes to block-based coding, you need to think about it as digital Lego, and they need to connect to each other in order for them to be able to work. So right now you have onShake as your event block, but you have your show string, Michael Bit, but you never said when to run that code.
Okay.
So you need to connect those two pieces of code.
So I'm going to pull that up here. That brings the blue color back to life. Pop on over here, press shake. And there we have it.
Woo, Michael Bit.
Michael Bit. It's official. So great stuff, folks. So what we want you guys to do now is go to makecode.mikebit.org, create your project and name it after your virtual assistant. And then quite simply use an input to display the title or the name of your virtual assistant. We're going to pause now just for a few moments to allow you guys to do that. And be sure to share with us how you're getting on, or even share with your teacher or your other classmates as well. Okay, great stuff, folks. We're going to keep it moving.
Yeah. So now that we have Michael Bit in there, ready to go whenever we press on shake.
Full LED glory. Yeah.
I think the next thing would be to do our light level sensor.
Okay.
Okay. So we both said we use this whenever we wake up in the morning. So we're going to do something similar with the marker bit. Now, I was trying to think what event we should use for this to trigger. And I think forever would be the best one to trigger this, because we want it to be constantly monitoring the light level and tell us when to wake up.
Okay, cool. Okay, yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're going to find forever in our basic category.
Let's start with it, yeah.
Scroll on down, drag out forever. I'm just going to place it to the side here. We do have a few different events, so I'm going to be very conscious of kind of like the layout of my code, make sure I don't forget or miss any blocks. So we're on forever then, Neve. And then what's the next thing we're going to need?
So the next thing we need to have a look at is when we actually want the light level sensor to turn on the lights and turn off the lights. And in order to introduce this concept, we actually need to introduce conditional statements. Okay. Now, Michael, would you like to tell us a little bit about what are conditional statements?
Yeah. So conditional statements are basically statements that include the words if, then, or else. And the way we like to look at them quite a lot here in DreamSpace is that you're following conditional statements for yourself every single day. They're just basic logic. So you wake up in the morning, you look out the window, you check the weather. If it's raining, then I'll wear a rain jacket. If it's cold, I'll wear a hoodie. Else, I'm going outside, so I'm going to wear a t-shirt, all right, at minimum, okay? So that is just basically how computers can decide or kind of think logically for itself. Look in and check in if certain conditions are being met, and if they are, it'll trigger a certain program to run or a certain kind of reaction, essentially. You know?
Exactly, and you said the word logic there.
Okay.
So where we'd actually get that block of code from is actually in the logic category in our toolbox.
Okay, excellent.
So when you click on logic, there are two blocks underneath the conditionals heading, and you can pick either of them. It doesn't matter. So
okay.
Whichever one you want, you drag out onto our workspace.
Let's see if true then. Let's try out.
And make sure you attach to our event block. Brilliant. So right now, your code or our code says forever if true then. So we want to have...
Looking at this drop down, nothing to do with light level just yet.
Not just yet, okay. I like to first have a look at what are our outputs or what are our conditions.
Yeah.
We either want the lights to turn on or off.
Off, yeah.
So in order to do this, we need to have two slots here in our block-based coding. So see the way there's a little plus icon there? If you click that little plus icon,
just like
it will give us our else condition.
Okay,
so our else
very
option.
cool.
So right now our code says forever if true then blank,
yeah.
else blank.
Okay.
So that's our first bit.
So what we need to do is we need to start thinking logically ourselves, really.
Yeah.
In block-based coding, it's really cool. You should be able to read the program and it should make some sense to you, even if you don't know coding or even if you don't know the rules of coding. Right now, it says forever, if true, then, and then else, okay? True doesn't really come into play here, all right? That's our Boolean true or false in computer science. What we're looking for here is essentially for that sentence to read, if light level is a certain range or value, then it will turn on the lights, else it will turn off the lights.
Exactly.
So how we're going to do that, folks, we're going to look for a block that can replace our diamond-shaped true block. And I actually spotted one just here in our logic category.
Underneath the comparison heading.
Comparison heading. So we have a 0 equals to 0. I'm dragging that out, folks, and you will see that little connector, red connector, showing that that will fit in and replace my true. And now we're starting to get a shape of something of where we want it to go. So it says if 0 is equal to 0, I want that first 0 to say what, Niamh?
If the light level.
Exactly.
And where you'll find the light level block in MakeCode marker bit is in inputs, because the light level is an input on the marker bit. So it's information taken in from our environment. So if you click on inputs and you scroll on down, you should see a kind of like oval shaped block called light level.
Just here.
So we want that to slot into the very first 0 position. They kind of fit into each other like jigsaws a little.
Okay.
So right now our code reads forever if light level is equal to 0. Now, just to explain how the light level works in the marker bit, Michael, if you go over to our simulator, it's actually brought up a little kind of like bright and darkness feature. So basically the way it works on the marker bit is 0. So if you bring it right down to 0.
Down to 0.
Yeah, 0 represents darkness, like it's fully dark outside.
Pitch black.
Yeah. And the value of 255 represent that it's really, really bright outside.
Yeah.
Okay. So Michael, we need to think for a moment ourselves. When do we want our marker bit to wake us up? Okay. At what light, like, does it have to be fully bright to wake us up, or is it just gradually as it's getting brighter throughout the day?
I'm kind of messing around with it here. I think it's maybe around like 100. I would say that's kind of where you're just seeing the sun just rise, nice and pleasant. That's when I want to be woken up. All right. So maybe around the 100 value.
Okay. Yeah. So we're saying forever if the light level is equal to 100, then what do we want to happen? We
want to turn on the lights.
Perfect.
You know? So we're going to represent that using a basic block. We're going to use show LEDs. And then we can actually just turn on all of these show LEDs just like this. Just like that.
To represent the lights turn on. I like that idea.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. And you can do whatever you want actually for this bit.
Oh yeah, folks, you can get really customizable here. So myself and Niamh are just giving you a walkthrough of the Michael bit. Your virtual assistant might take a different kind of tour. And if you're having any issues as you're exploring different kind of concepts and ideas, let us know in the Q&A because we're going to be able to assist you there. Or even better yet, even ask the people around you. I'm sure your peers are going to be willing to kind of help you out as well. So Niamh, I'm looking at here.
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing here is that not turning on for me anywhere.
Interesting. Right. Yeah. So because if you read our code, remember, it's very logical the way we can read our code right now. It's because it's block-based. It says forever if the light level is equal to 100.
Yeah.
Now, it's very difficult for it to always, you know, pin exactly when it's equal to that 100 value.
Yeah.
So we're actually going to have to change the operator of equals. And if you look where that equal symbol is, there's a little drop down arrow. Okay. And I always say they're your best friend when it comes to block-based coding because it means you have more options to choose from.
Yes.
So you can see here we have equals, we have less than and greater than symbols. So what we wanted to say is we want to say if the light level is greater than or equal to 100, then the light should turn on.
Okay, so that makes sense. I'm going to play it and lights are all on here now. Now, Niamh, what I was actually thinking about there was this is a little bit different to the typical light level reader that we do quite a lot because it's actually inverted. So what we're picturing here is waking up in the morning, curtains are drawn. It's still mid-December, so it's still pitch black outside when we're waking up in the morning.
Exactly.
We want the lights to be turning on for here. A lot of the time we look at the light level reader in which we actually turn off the lights when it's bright. Yeah. We're actually going to do the inverse of it this time because this is our virtual assistant, right? This is not our smart home tech that's turning off our lights. So that looks good to me. And I think the next bit then, Niamh,
we need an else because right now if you test it out, we have no other option for when it's else. So else we have blank. Else nothing happens.
So we want the lights to go off.
Yeah. So maybe have like one little LED to represent off.
Okay.
In the center. What do you think?
Let's check that out. Let's bring that down and the light level is off. Do you know what I'm going to do, Niamh? I'm actually going to create a little bit of an animation of the lights kind of like slowly fading out, right? So I'm going to do,
that's cool.
I'm going to do just show LEDs blocks, just like this, fill in the lights, and I'm gonna have to do it a couple times. I'm gonna right click, or if you're on touch screen, you can just hold down and actually duplicate blocks. Duplicating is really a good way to kind of speed up different processes. And for each LED.
I was going to say,
yeah.
This reminds me of like the coding concepts of sequencing as you're doing this, because sequencing and coding is super important. Basically, it's your step-by-step process to solving your problem. And I like to think of it a little bit as like a recipe. So when you're following a recipe, it's really important to follow those steps or the sequence in it. So the same here in coding, we're reading code from top to bottom. So as Michael is adding images, so see here, he first of all wanted the lights to be on and then to slowly fade away.
Yeah.
So if you look at the sequence there, you can see them slowly fade away.
Yeah, I like it. Okay. Now, ideally, we'd have it turn off lights fully after it does it once. But I kind of like it's always showing us that at that point it'll turn off the lights.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm fairly happy with that. So what we're going to do now, folks, is we're going to pause. We're going to give you guys the opportunity to add in your next feature for your virtual assistant. It can be similar to ours, which is turning off the lights during nighttime or whatever, and then turn them on when you're trying to wake up in the morning. Or it could be something completely unique to you, and you're just using the same kind of concepts as us. So those conditional statements, those forever blocks, or even those LEDs as well. Oh, actually, I forgot to loop it. I forgot to loop my animation.
But do you need a loop? Because you have used the event block
because it's using forever. Excellent. Okay, very interesting. Okay, cool. We might include a loop block later on in our code. Okay, great. So, folks, we're going to pause now, give you guys the opportunity to catch up and add your next feature to your very own virtual assistant. Michael Bit is really coming together, I think.
I think so.
Okay, great stuff. So, Niamh, time to move on to our next few features. So, you want to refer back to our plan? What are we looking at?
First things first, I think let's do the temperature sensor, because as I mentioned, I always ask my Alexa every morning what's the temperature like outside, so I know like what kind of jacket to wear.
Nice.
And recently it's been very cold.
It has been extremely cold, yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking what kind of input or trigger would be used for this one, and I think maybe just a button. So maybe anytime I click on button A.
Nice simple button, yeah, exactly. So I'm going to drag out on button A pressed. I'm going to place it just there.
And this means anytime I press button A, I want it to show me the temperature.
Yeah.
Now, temperature on the microbit is an input. So where we'll find that block of code is in inputs.
So we're going to go into input.
And if you scroll down, you should see an oval shaped block.
Very good. We have our oval shaped block.
And drag that out. And
no, that's not fitting in there for me.
Exactly. So we have a little bit of a bug.
Okay.
Kind of, because temperature right now is that oval shaped block, and it doesn't fit into our event block right now. Now, temperature is a number. Okay, so when you ask someone for temperature, they're usually like, oh, it's 2 degrees Celsius or it's 10 degrees Celsius, right? So what we wanted to do is we have to actually grab another block. Okay, so Michael, if you click on basic, and if you drag at the very first block of code that says show number 0, so if you drag that out and add that to our on button A. Now, first of all, let's test this out. So if you press button A on our microbit simulator, it should show us the number 0, because that's what our code currently says. But we don't want it to show us the number 0. We want it to show us the temperature.
Okay.
So if you replace that 0, see that 0 with our oval-shaped temperature block, now when we press button A, it should show us the temperature. Now, because this is a simulator, it will bring up like a temperature gauge.
So I can change it.
You can change it. But in real life, if you had a microbit and you download your code onto a microbit, it can actually pick up the exact temperature in a room.
So right now, this is what everyone wants the temperature to be. Unfortunately, it's right down here.
It's much colder.
Yeah. So what's cool about this, Niamh, as well is this is actually multiple we don't typically look at this quite a lot. Multiple programs working on the microbit at the one time, running on the one hardware. So we have our light level, basically turning on and off the lights at the same time. That's always going to be doing that.
Yeah.
But then our A button, our trigger, will then have our temperature run, and then we'll cut back to our light level, because that's the forever block. That's always going to be happening. Okay. The next thing, Niamh, I wonder, as just maybe a fun side note, let's add some music to it.
Michael loves to dance.
I do love a good dance. All right. Do love a good boogie. So what are we going to use to trigger that?
We could use another button as well. Why don't we do on button B maybe?
Yeah, we can do on button B pressed. Yeah, I like it. So I'm going to drag that out. I'm going to play it just there.
Do you know what we could do? Let's actually have a look at the inputs and see if there's any other event block we could use. Instead of using on button B right now.
Bye-bye on button A.
Sorry, changed my mind. Let's have a look. So if we scroll down through it, there are tons more options here. And I was actually thinking, because we want to emulate the whole idea of this being our virtual assistant.
Hey Michael Bit, play
so
charts.
if you ever notice, if you ever talk to any of these virtual assistants, if they're playing something out loud, they usually like kind of lower their voice a little. So I was thinking of using on loud sound instead.
Okay, so that would be basically our voice, would
Like
be the loud
us
sound.
speaking, but like, hey Michael, play music.
Okay, and you can actually try do two different ones. There's a loud and there's quiet as well. So
Yeah.
I'll say on loud sound. We're then going to need, obviously, a music category.
Yeah.
What's cool here is we're just going to drag out this one, folks, but you guys can actually start exploring, maybe looking at conditionals of saying maybe a shuffle. You know what I mean? Hey, Michael Bit, can you play the top charts? And it'll shuffle through those, all right? Or play my playlist on shuffle and so on. What we're going to do is we're going to go into music. We're going to drag out this first one, all right? So I'm just going to drag this one out. It's going to be play melody, because I wouldn't trust myself making my own one. We're going to use one of the predetermined ones that are found in our gallery. And we have a huge range of different ones.
There are tons of different ones there. I
Let
kind
me
of like
see.
the idea of Paris.
Oh, I do like the idea of Paris as well. Okay. Very good.
Ooh.
Cool.
I like the sound of that.
I like the sound of it as well. It might not be coming out through our viewers' side, the audio, but you can actually customize it. You can up the tempo. You do love a bit of a higher tempo, Neve, so let's up that up a small bit. Bring that up, right up there. Right up, 500 tempo, beats per minute, okay? And then our final piece on that block then is until done. So how we're going to trigger this, Neve, is how are we going to do this on our simulator?
It's a little different on the simulator. It can be a little bit hard to test, but basically, so if you can have a look at the simulator, it's after bringing up kind of like the microphone on it, because the version 2 of the Microbit has a microphone on it. So the kind of the values are the same. So if you have a look, see at the top of it there, if you click on the microphone and on loud sound. So same thing, the sound kind of works with the same digits. So 0 represents it being really quiet, and 255 represents really, really loud.
That's typically the range for values within the microbit. Okay. Now, Neve, I was looking, I was like, why is it so quick? I forgot I had put it at 500 beats per minute. So if you go now, okay, perfect. So that's working for us. What's cool about this now, folks, and what we want you guys to think about is what these inputs are replicating in a real-world virtual assistants, okay? So on shake is basically waking up your device, right? Turning on, plugging in, and so on. It'll play the title. On forever, that's basically what your virtual assistants are doing constantly. So they're constantly have their microphones on. They constantly have sensors on, taking in information from the world around it. So forever, it's taken in the light level. We also then have prompts. So we won't have our virtual assistant constantly telling us the temperature. We have to ask it to tell us the temperature. And that we're using us asking it in lieu of with on button B pressed, or on button A pressed even. And then finally, then we actually even have us mimicking saying, hey, Michael Bit, play a song on loud noise, right? Because I do speak pretty loud, so it's pretty apt, okay? So what we're going to do now, folks, is we're going to pause another few minutes, get you guys to catch up with us, add a few more features using some of the inputs and some of the concepts that we use there for your virtual assistant. We'll be back very shortly as we'll start including those warm-ups, which is going to be really important. See, I nearly even forgot about them because I always forget about them before my run as well.
They're really important.
They're really important. So we're going to pause now, give you guys a few moments, let us know how you're getting on, or even share it with your classmates or your teacher. Okay, great stuff, folks. So we're about to add our final feature, Neve. So catch us up. What was our final feature?
I don't think you want to know this, but it was a random warm-up exercise picker.
Oof, okay. All right, so let's get that going. So let's think about it. First and foremost, we need an input to emulate me saying, Michael Bit, give us the exercise.
So I'm going to use my on button B for this one.
Okay.
So remember I brought it out before, but we're going to use it for this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
On button A pressed.
Now, this is a little trick because on button A has already been used. If you see beside the letter A, there's that little drop down arrow. So if you click on that, there's more options.
Okay.
And you can click on button B.
Okay, that brings it back to life, basically. Okay,
Brilliant.
Great stuff. Next thing that we're going to do, Neve, is we have to give our microbit a couple of different options, right? Or in other words, different conditions in regards to what warm-up it's deciding to tell me to do. So we already looked at it earlier on. We're going to need a
conditional statement.
Conditional statement. So I'm going to go into the conditional statement. I'm going to drag that out and I'm going to place it just there. How many warm-ups should we include?
I think 3.
3, okay. Yeah. So I'm going to click my plus icon 2 times. And now you'll actually say if true, then, else if, with another diamond slot, then, and then we have our final else, which is basically kind of like our catch-all at the very end. Now, next thing we need to do is we're going to go to input and we're going to look for a block that says exercise.
Yeah. Scroll on down. Oof.
Neve. I don't know if there's any exercises in the inputs.
There isn't.
No.
Okay, so this is where we actually have to introduce a concept known as variables.
Okay.
And variables, Michael, are like, you like to think them as a box.
Yeah.
A box that you label, has a name, and it stores information, but this information can change throughout your program.
Yes.
So I think a really good real life example of this, I like to give real life examples, is a step counter. So, you know, step counters people use to count the number of steps they're taking. So it's counting the number of steps they're taking. So it's storing that amount.
Yep.
But every time they take a step, it's adding on to it.
Okay, excellent. So
If you click on variables,
we're going to
so
go to
we need
variables,
to create a variable.
and we're going to make a variable.
Make a variable. Now, when you're making a variable, it's really important to give it a name that makes sense.
Yeah.
So this is an exercise picker.
Yeah.
Or warm-up exercise picker.
Let's
so if you
say-
want to name it something around that idea.
Let's say warm up. Okay.
Okay, brilliant.
So let's say warm up.
And then if you
I'm going to hit OK.
click OK, it'll bring up 3 blocks on your screen once you
Very
create a
good.
variable. So the first one says set warm up to 0.
Yeah.
The second one says change warm up by 1, and then the final one is that oval shape warm up block.
Okay, warm up block. So that's going to kind of slot into where we would have put light level
Exactly.
or temperature and so on.
Exactly.
Now, one really important thing, folks, I see a lot of students sometimes working with variables, they actually get mixed up between set and change. I know that's only one word of it, kind of like a difference at the very start there, but it's really important you pull out the correct one. So we're going to be saying set warm up to.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to drag that out, Niamh, and I'm going to place it just there in my program. Next thing what we need to do is we need to start thinking about our exercises.
Yeah.
So what are our exercises?
So very good question. So I was thinking maybe something like jumping jacks.
Okay,
Like
let's
the
do
harder
jumping
things,
jacks.
yeah.
Okay.
Now, you could represent this in so many different ways. This is where you really can get creative with your coding and with your programming.
Yeah.
I was just thinking something simple like maybe a string.
Okay.
A string
very
for
good.
the first one.
Yeah. So we're going to go string for first one.
Yeah. I'm just say jumping jacks. Nice
Jumping
and easy.
jack. Jumping jacks. Very good.
Maybe for the next one, we bring out a show icons, or maybe not show icons, sorry, show LEDs.
Show LEDs. Yeah. Very good.
And for this one here, maybe something like, I don't know, high knees.
High knees.
Can you
So,
represent high knees?
oof. Okay, let me see.
I did a bit difficult one for you, sorry.
I'm going to do just a stick person like this, and then I'm going to duplicate, and then I'm going to do them just with a knee out from them, just like that. Okay.
Perfect. That's great.
But that's just one high knee up. We
Yeah.
want that to happen a couple of
Like-
different times. And if we want instructions to repeat in our code, what are we going to be looking at, Niamh?
A loop.
We're going to be looking at loops. Let's
So
jump
you
over
tell
to
it how
our
many times
loop
you want it to
category. We're going to be using a for loop, which is our top one, which is repeat 4 times do. Wrap it around our animation. And how many high knees should you do?
Maybe like 5.
Okay,
Throw 5 in there.
Okay, 5.
I'm being generous to you.
And then last but not least, what's our final warm-up?
Maybe, I don't know. A little warm up.
Hamstring stretch.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I don't think I'll be able to create that.
No.
So let's just use a string for that, okay? Let's just
What
say,
I love about the show LEDs though, you really have to be creative with it because
Yeah.
there is only that 5x5 grid.
exactly.
So well done on that. That was
Yeah,
really tough.
no
I
bother
put
at
you
all.
on the spot there. I'm sorry.
You're all good, you're all good. So now, let's test this out. Let's go over to B.
Yeah.
And, okay, couple things, Niamh. It's telling me
Okay.
jumping jacks,
Right.
okay? Which is great. Now, it's saying jumping jacks just constantly.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Well, if you read your code, yes, because that's currently what our code is telling it to do.
Okay, yeah.
Because our statement says if true then, and it always thinks the first option is true,
Yeah.
which is jumping jacks.
And it is true, yes, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay.
So we need to change this a little.
So
okay.
we looked at those diamond blocks that can replace these kind of true slots. So we're going to pull out 2 comparison blocks and actually replace both of those with these comparison blocks, just like that.
Yeah.
Does that look good?
Yeah. Perfect.
I'm then going to have our warm-up fill in these first zeros, similar to what we did with our light level and our temperature, just like that. Does that look good as well?
Yeah.
And then jumping jacks is going to be our first option.
Yeah, so we're going to assign a number to each exercise. So jumping jack's going to be number 1.
Yeah.
Your high knee is going to be number 2.
Number 2.
And then the only other option, which is else, is your hamstring stretch, which
Okay.
is number 3. But we don't need to assign it to a number because it's the only other option.
Okay, very good. Now, Niamh, what I'm noticing here is, I wonder if anyone else spotted it as well, I think there's something wrong with the sequence of my code.
Exactly.
So if I'm reading it from top to bottom, on button B pressed, if warm-up is equal to 1, then show jumping jacks. Else if warm-up is equal to 2, then... But I've never told my program to set my warm-ups variable
Exactly.
to a specific number.
Well,
so I need to make sure.
You kind of did. You just
Okay.
put it in the wrong position.
No. I have my set warm-up to 0 down the very bottom. I want to make sure that's the very top, because when it comes to coding, computers read from top to bottom, much like the majority of us do, right? It's like the sequence, like Niamh mentioned earlier on, our recipe. Step 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, next thing, Niamh, is I can customize this.
Yeah, so currently your code says set warm-up to 0, but we don't have the number 0 in our code. We have the numbers 1, 2, or 3.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So we don't want it set to a particular number. We want it to be our random number.
Okay.
Okay? So if where we get the block of code for that is in the category of maths.
Okay, so it's a bit of randomness to it.
Yes, because we want to be completely random. We don't want you to do these in order. We want to spice it up a little. So there is a block of code, an oval shaped one, that says pick random 0 to 10. You're going to drag that out.
Yeah.
And you're going to replace 0 in set warm up to that.
Yeah.
And we only have 3 options. Here we either have
1, 2, or 3.
1, 2, or 3. So you're going to get to pick random 1, 2, 3.
Very good. Okay, good stuff.
So now if you press button B on your microbit simulator, it should, well, it's in jumping jacks first of all, but we'll press it again just to make sure.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, panicking here a little.
And then, we should either get hamstring stretch after I press it again. This time, we're getting jumping jacks again. That could just be odds. Right? That just could be the odds of it. We'll try it one more time. I wonder what everybody's going to come up with their warm-up.
I'm excited. Because you can really be so creative with it. And you can add even more to it as well.
We're getting jumping jacks again.
Let's
so I think everything is okay. Set warm-up to pick random 1 to 3. If warm-up is equal to 1.
Warm-up is equal to 2.
I think we're all good. I think it just might be luck. The chance of it. One more. Oh, yeah. There we go. We have our high knees. Okay, very good.
Brilliant. I was panicking there. I was like, do we have a bug in our code?
And I like how our light is coming in at every stage of our high knee.
Yeah.
So what we want you guys to do now, folks, for the final maybe just 5 minutes just before we wrap up, so we want you to add in your final key feature, your virtual assistant. It can be as complex as what we did with using loops and conditional statements and variables, but we want you to add in a feature now to your virtual assistant that does incorporate the variables concept, because we did introduce you guys to that. We want you to test out a small bit. Let us know how you're getting on in the Q&A, or share it with a peer or with your teacher as well.
Okay, folks, so that brings an end to our very own coding assistant. Ours was called MakeCode. I hope you come up with the most creative names ever, but let's recap what we did first of all. Yeah. So first of all, we did on an input, we got it to show our name of our virtual assistant.
Similar to a lot of virtual assistants that introduce themselves, and so did ours. Yeah.
Next, we got it to do our work with the light level sensor. So we got it to work on the sense that we wanted to turn on the lights when it was starting to get bright.
Yeah.
Kind of opposite to what we typically do, but it works in this instance. Then we got to work on temperature sensor. So we got, anytime we press button A on our microbit, we got to show the current temperature, because I want to know when to wear a coat, or when to bring a coat.
And that's mimicking one of the very simple tasks that virtual assistants, those AI power tools, can actually do for us, saying, oh, hey, MakeCode, what is the temperature outside?
Exactly. So then we both love to listen to music, and our virtual assistants are great at playing music out for us. So we said unallowed noise to mimic or emulate us, like actually speaking to our virtual assistant to actually play us some music. And you can be so creative with this. Myself and Michael weren't the most creative with this one, but you can definitely be more creative.
We did a simple pre-made melody. The cool one about that one, folks, is we want you to start thinking about how our voice actually interacts with a virtual assistant. What's important about that as well is that virtual assistants are powered by AI, so they actually learn your voice over time. You'll notice this is if you actually went over to your mate's house and tried out their virtual assistant, they'd actually respond to your mate's voice far quicker and far more effectively, because over time they've actually learned, you know, the nuance in their voice, their speaking pattern, and so on.
Really, really cool.
Really cool.
Then we brought in the exercise picker, Michael's favorite part. So Michael loves to go for runs, so we got our virtual assistant, our MakeCode, to pick a random exercise whenever we press on button B in our MakeCode.
Yes, yeah, very simple, right? So I basically get to say to my virtual assistant, give me some warm-ups, I'm about to go for a little bit of a jog. So folks, just before we wrap up and say goodbye, we want to give you a few more recommendations for how you can celebrate Computer Science Education Week. We looked at a little bit of history, we looked at some concepts, we looked into the future, and we even worked on our very own virtual assistant. But what else can you do? Well, first and foremost, you can do some social media sharing. So teachers, educators, or even adults joining us on the call, be sure to share your projects and learnings on social media using hashtag CSEdWeek. You can also use hashtag MSDreamspace. We love seeing that. Allows you to connect with other educators who are kind of doing similar things.
Next up, you can take part in the Hour of Code, and why not encourage other people to take part in the Hour of Code? And the nice thing about the Hour of Code is you can actually take part in it in any time throughout the year.
Yes.
And it's a great way of introducing people to basic coding concepts, or even like developing your computer science skills even further.
Next off, folks, you can maybe look to see if there's anyone in your school community who actually is a computer science professional, software engineer, or working in the world of CS, and invite them to your class for some inspiring talks. Be sure to check out dreamspace.ie. We have some offerings around that as well, where you can actually have a Microsoft employee come out, give your class a talk, which is really cool.
Why not also organize some coding workshops? So you could also maybe organize your own Hour of Coding workshop, or maybe now that you have a little bit of experience with Microbit, why not teach others how to use Microbit?
So today we also looked at data, really important part of powering the future of AI. And Microbit actually has lots of data projects. So we didn't get too deep into them today, but you can explore data science by creating projects with the Microbit, like a wireless data logger, which is quite cool, especially if you have the hardware. And check out their website for more information.
So now that you've created your very own virtual assistant or micro assistant, why not do a project showcase? So this gives you the opportunity to showcase your coding projects either online or in your school, and to celebrate all the amazing work and the creativity you've put into those amazing projects.
So folks, that's it from us here in Dreamspace. Thank you so much for joining us for Dreamspace Live, celebrating Computer Science Education Week. We can't wait to see you again in a future Dreamspace Live event. Be sure to share any kind of photos you may have taken on hashtag MSDreamspace. We love to see them. But that's all from me. Thanks so much. I've been Michael.
And I've been Neve.
See you at our next Dreamspace Live.
Bye.
Bye folks.